Good evening. Hello, hello. This is going to be, let's see, who else have I got here? Who's here with me? Looks like South Carolina. Go ahead and let me know who you are. Say hello or send me an instant message so I know who's here with me. This is our...
Hello, this is Miss Mays. This is Miss Mays.
Hello, how are you?
I'm wonderfully blessed. Thank you.
Well, good. That's a good way to be on a Wednesday night or any night, right?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, we have great weather here in South Carolina. So when you posted that you had a storm, I was ready. When you were ready for 8, what was it, 8:00, 9:00 here?
Uh-huh.
I had to move it up a little later, but that's okay. Everything is good.
Yeah, and they're calling for more storms. We just had another severe warning put out. It's that time of year where you start with warm weather, and then it gets cold, and it gets warm, and it gets cold, and as all the cold and hot as they collide, we end up with these kinds of things that produce tornadoes. Being in the Midwest, I think that's the thing that I'm the most concerned about is tornadoes.
Tornado.
Having grown up on the East Coast, we didn't really see tornadoes very often. I'm used to, and having lived in Florida for a lot of years, I'm very used to the idea of hurricanes. But with hurricanes, you get some warning, and they're coming, and you're able to get ready for them. The thing that's very scary out here in the Midwest is when tornadoes decide they're going to show up in the middle of the night, because you can't see them coming. So that's the stuff that's not so much fun. But that's all right. That's, spring and fall. This is what happens. So, all right. Week 4 for leadership. Time flies when we're having fun, because we are just about through the middle of week number 4, which means next week is the end of the road for leadership. And then, of course, you're going to get a nice break. This week, we are doing the typical discussions, as well as the quiz, the live session, which we are doing right now. And for those of you who are not here live, you have a chance to listen to the meeting and to give a summary of the substantive issues that we talked about. And then, of course, there is a paper for the week. So this first discussion says, why do you think persuasion is considered to be one of a leader's most essential tools? What do you think, Florence? Why do you think that persuasion is so important for leaders?
The more adept a leader is and proficient with art and science, using influence and persuasion, the more likely the goal of the organization will be successfully met with less frustration and resistance.
Okay.
That's one aspect. Leader persuading, it's hard to persuade people to follow you, but they said in my reading that you need to be taught how to be a good persuader, a good leader that persuades individuals.
Okay.
And how to good leader to persuade. So you have to take training, get some kind of training in that, And as I'm reading, I'm really getting into it tonight. And as I was reading, it said that there are 6. Let me see. I took some notes here. Oh. Yeah. 6 basic principles of persuasion.
Okay.
One is liking. People like those who like them.
Right.
Receptor. Help me pronounce that. RECIPROCITY.
Reciprocity, which means reciprocating. You know, I mean,
Yep.
you help me, I help you. You back me up, I
Right.
back you up. Reciprocate.
Right. People repay in kind. Like you said, if you scratch my back, I scratch your back.
Sure.
You help me, help work along with you, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
then another one, social proof. People follow the lead of similar others, somebody that you share something in common with.
Sure. And
You
that's
know,
what
you're
I
more
always
active.
would tell people, you know, when you go in for an interview, look around a person's office, try to find something that you have in common with them. Maybe they have pictures of their children and you can talk about your kids. Maybe they have a picture of a sailboat and you love to sail, or maybe they've got a picture of going to the beach for vacation and that's your favorite place to go for vacation is the beach. If you know, people, and it's true, people like to like people who like them. People like to like and follow people who have something in common with them. It makes you feel like you have some commonality. I know that when, like for instance, I have a class that I'm teaching here in Missouri at an online community college, and one of my students walked in, and the first day we all talked about where we're from, and he piped up and he said, "Well, I'm from a little town in Massachusetts called Pittsfield." Well, Pittsfield is literally about an hour away from where I grew up. And so immediately I was like, "Oh, Chris," I'm like, "I'm from near there." And it's like there was almost like this instant friendship in a way because, you know, I felt like, okay, if I say something, he understands what I mean because we're from the same place, basically. So,
Yeah, we share something in common, right?
yes,
And that makes
absolutely.
the communication easier. You know,
Right.
you feel more relaxed
Yep.
and you open up more. You
Yes,
open up more,
and
you know?
I lived for 3 years in Atlanta. I used to travel back and forth through South Carolina a lot. So when I hear you're from South Carolina, I automatically think to myself, "Oh, well, I'm going to like Florence because I like people from South Carolina. I've spent a lot of time in South Carolina." You know, so I mean, you definitely, I think, there's some camaraderie when you find something that people have that is in common with you. Now, the other thing is, you know, I think that you have to keep in mind not everybody comes to work with the same outlook every day, and not everybody comes to work for the same reasons. I think most people show up to work, at least in part, to get paid because getting paid means you can pay your bills. But people have different reasons for working at doing what they're doing, and everybody has their own life outside of work. So I think, you know, not everybody shows up at the door of the office ready, willing, and able to work at the same level as everyone else in there. So I think if you are a good leader and you can persuade people that the right thing to do is, you know, X, Y, or Z today, I think you need to be able to persuade people in order to get them to help you do what needs to be done. So I think all that stuff that you're reading about persuasion is definitely good. So that is that's going to help you out with this particular discussion board. Let's look at the other one. The other one due for Friday says, "How do you think a leader might use coaching to help increase ethical behavior among group members?" What do you think about coaching, Florence?
Coaching.
Yeah,
Well,
have you ever been a coach to
it
someone?
yeah, no, not particular, but I have some experience in sales. And years ago, I used to sell Avon
Okay.
and a lot of, you know, we had our leaders and team leaders, and the team leader would coach individuals because she wanted us to be more productive in our sales, you know,
Okay.
and yeah, she would work with us individually or as a team. And yes, it's a good thing. You need it because a lot of people, when they come into these positions, they lack confidence.
Yes.
So when you have that coaching, that helps build up their self-esteem. After attending these meetings with being coached, I felt that I can go out and I can deal with the public and sell to the public. So
Okay.
it's very important when you in that perspective on a job as well, to have someone who has expertise and know how to coach you and walk you through situations and build up your confidence and your self-esteem so that when you're successful, the whole team is successful. You work
Absolutely.
with everybody. And yeah, you teach them how to speak, how to walk, how to make eye contact. It's very important because a lot of people, they lack confidence, especially when you deal in sales. And that you have to be able to sell yourself first and foremost.
Yep.
If someone's coming approaching me and want to sell something to me, I'm looking at their appearance. And number two, their speech and the way they communicate with me.
Yes.
And if they don't look successful, I'm not going to want to
Okay.
purchase something. I'm not going to want to be a part of their team.
Yep.
So, of course, all of that's important as a leader, and you have to know how to be an effective leader, right?
Okay.
And
Right.
all of these things come to play when you're a strong leader in any organization, whether
Now,
it's sales,
another
whether
thing that I think, says, how does coaching help to increase ethical behavior among group members? I think, most of us, if you think back to a time when you had a coach, if it was in a business setting, or if it was maybe you played basketball in high school, or maybe you played little league, or maybe you were part of a soccer team. The thing that comes to mind when I think of a coach is I think of somebody who is a mentor. And I always remembered that, I never wanted to disappoint my coaches, right? Someone who you feel like has coached you and who has taken some time to help mold you and make you better. You feel like you have a responsibility to them to do your best. So I think that when it comes to increasing ethical behavior, I think that probably I would say that most people who respect their coaches, respect their mentors, probably work even harder to make sure that everything they do is not only right as far as rules and regulations and doing the job, but also ethically right as well. Because, like I said, I think when you have a coach and or a mentor mentee kind of relationship, there is that feeling. It's kind of like, you never wanted to disappoint your parents, you didn't want to disappoint your grandparents, and you don't want to disappoint your coaches. You want them to be proud of you and for them to look at you and say, wow, the time and effort that I put into you was well spent, because look how great you turned out. So I think from an ethical point of view, I would say that I think that most people are well aware of keeping things as ethical as possible so that they don't disappoint their coaches. Okay? All right.
Yeah, that's right. Because once your coach expounds, you're as a team, and they give recognition to you, and they say, look at the wonderful job Miss Mays is doing, and they're talking about your greatness and your success, and you feel great about that. That makes you push even harder.
And it makes you want to do the right thing.
Yeah, and do the right thing. Yes,
absolutely.
Right.
Okay. Well, that then plays in nicely to the week 4 assignment, the paper. Again, 500 to 600 words. Discuss the relationship between open communication and leadership effectiveness within an organizational context. Now, for me, communication is key. In real estate, they say location, location, location. And I've always said in business, it's communication, communication, communication. I personally have never been someone who did my best work when I didn't understand why I was doing something. And to me, one of the first things that good leaders do is they communicate to the people working with them what the goals are. what are the goals and why are the goals important, and how are we going to collectively get to the goal together? And what role does everybody play in getting to that goal line? I think that's an important thing. Um, I think it's also very important that leaders communicate throughout the entire process. I've had leaders before who, they give you good direction up front and then they just kind of let you flounder out there and do your own thing, and then are upset later on when things didn't go exactly how they expected them to go. And my response to people like that in the past has been, well, how come you didn't, if you saw something going wrong, why didn't you speak up and tell people, hey, I think we're getting off track. I think we're not going in the right direction. I think we started off strong, but we're straying away from, where we need to be, or we need to kick it up a notch and get moving on this. So communication up front so that people have buy-in to the project, I think, is very important. Communication along the way, because nobody likes to get to the finish line and then hear, oh, well, we're glad you crossed the finish line, but in order for this to be successful, you needed to get across the finish line 2 minutes ago. If you had told me halfway through the race that I needed to pick up the pace a little bit and get there a little bit quicker than I'm getting there right now, then guess what? That gives me a chance to correct things along the way. If you get over the finish line and, I come across the finish line and you tell me that wasn't quite fast enough, well, there's nothing I can do about it at that point, because it's done, it's over with. So communicating along the way what it is that is expected, and why. Like I said, maybe I've just always been an inquisitive person who did better work when I knew why I was doing something. But, I think that most people, if they understand how their contribution fits into the big picture, and that their contribution actually does contribute to the success of the big picture and to getting to the goal, then I think people will work harder. The other thing is, I think that when you communicate with people, for me, I've always said, when I've gone out and hired people, I hire people to work with me. I have never liked leaders who said, well, I have 17 people who work for me. I always said, I have 17 people who work with me. I think that just because you are the leader does not mean that you can't be part of the group. And this idea that, I'm the leader, so I'm up at a higher level and everybody else is at a lower level working for me, I don't think that that communicates the type of message that helps things get done as successfully as they could have if people felt more included in the group. So for me, communication is always key. And it's kind of funny because I think that even like kind of boils over into my law practice. And my law partner and I, it's funny, she's more of the, I'll tell people what's happening after the fact, and I communicate along the way. And we have a case that I was dealing with one part of the case, and she stepped in to deal with another part. And when she stepped in to work with the client said, well, I want Holly to give me updates on what's going on because she's really good at communicating. So, and so my law partner, she sent me an email. She was laughing. She goes, LOL, he wants you to communicate. And I said, well, I think it's because I've pretty much figured out what he needs to be comfortable in these cases. And, he's my client, and, I know how to keep him kind of on the straight and narrow. And I do it by communicating with him. So there are times when too much information is too much information. But overall, I would rather err on the side of communicating too much than not enough. That's my feeling. What do you think, Florence?
That's very, very, very important. Every job that I have worked in, at one time I worked for Time Magazine as a floater in the company, and I was there, and whenever they had any job openings posted, their first requirement was you had to have good communication skills.
Yep.
That was mandatory. And interpersonal relationship. You had to know how to speak effectively. You had to know how to convey your message, like you said, and work as a team within the organization. And that was first and foremost what they had looked for. Okay? That's how important the communication is, especially across the line. Like you say, you're a lawyer. Your background is in law. And the example was the client. He said he'd rather have you communicate with him because you were an effective communicator.
Right.
And you got the point across. And that's what you need to be successful in business. You need to be able to communicate well with others. That's very important.
And I think you need to learn who your audience is and learn how to communicate in a manner that is effective with them, because not every form of communication is going to be effective with every person. So I think you need to take a little bit of time, learn who the audience is, learn how it is that they communicate, how they receive and give communication, and figure that out so that you can communicate with them individually or as a team as effectively as possible. So, all right. Well, that gets us through our week 4 information. So I'll go ahead and close this out.
Where did it turn? I can't believe it.
I'm sorry?
I can't believe we were in the 4th week.
I know.
I said, where did the time slide to? I can't believe it that this class will almost be over.
I know.
In another week and a half.
Know. 5 weeks. Well, 5 weeks goes fast.
We just have so much fun. You talk about leaving. Oh my God! So as the time goes along by,
I know.
So much to learn. It's so interesting.
You say time flies when you're having fun.
Today's my birthday. Today's my birthday. I'm 68 years old. So
well, happy birthday!
I'm 68 years old.
If there were other people in here, we would sing to you, Florence. You don't want to hear me sing, but I will say happy birthday. How's that?
Thank you, but I just want to know where the time is flying by so
I know,
quickly.
it's
and
going.
I'm enjoying what I'm learning.
It's going.
You're such a great teacher. Thank you so much.
Here's the good news. Hopefully I'll see you in some other classes very soon. So, all right.
Well, yeah.
I'm around. You never
good.
know when I'm going to show up again. So, all right. So everybody have a great week. Okay. And we'll get together next week one more time for week number 5, and then you'll be able to put leadership in the history books and move on to your next classes. So, Florence, have a great rest of your birthday. Happy birthday and many more. And we will see you next week for one more live meeting. Take care.
Okay. All right. Say likewise to you. And have a good night.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.